All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA task list series with C5, measure form and strength of behavior, or topography and magnitude. Simply, what does the behavior look like and what is the intensity of the behavior? These are going to be complements to the main quantitative measurements that we've already covered. As always, check out behavioranalyst.study.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack and all of our practice exams. Let us know when you pass your exam so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Like, subscribe, work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Okay, so we're considering definitional measures of behavior as complements to our dimensional quantities of behavior. Now, what does that mean? All that means is we're going to use things like topography and what the behavior looks like, and magnitude, the force or intensity of behavior, to help define and flesh out the quantitative measures of behavior. And why do we do this? Well, when we use dimensional quantities of behavior, these quantitative measurements of repeatability, extent, and locus, it tells us some great quantitative information of how long something is occurring or how many times something is occurring. But if I just say aggression occurred 6 times, now, to you, what does aggression mean? Because it probably means something different to me, something different to my other technician, something different to my other analyst, something different to my mom, something different to my aunt. And this is where topography and magnitude come into play. These definitional measures help us define behavior and determine if behavior occurred. So instead of saying aggression occurred 5 times, we can say Dave, with a closed fist, swung his arm and made contact forcefully with his brother's face 5 times. Which one is easier to observe? Which one is easier to reliably observe? Well, obviously, the definition with topography and magnitude. So while topography and magnitude are not sufficient for measuring behavior, meaning we do need quantities of behavior, they are certainly necessary to flesh out and help change and observe and know if these behaviors occur. So that's the main idea behind topography and magnitude, because we always quantify behavior with our measurement systems. First and foremost, you've got to be measuring something, right? You've got to pick a measurement system. We've got to quantify it. The only way we can consistently measure it and change it. Topography is form, shape, how a response looks. Magnitude is force or intensity, and we're going to get more into those. The main thing to take away from the introduction here, these are definitional measures of behavior, meaning they're going to flesh out words like elopement and aggression and avoidance and compliance and all these other words we use that are very broad and subjective. Topography and magnitude are going to objectify them, right? Make them much more objective, okay, and much more observable and measurable. So question, a person whispering, a man jumping high, and a person sweating profusely best represent what related to responses? So what are we describing here? The person whispering is talking about the loudness of their voice. A man jumping high is talking about the height of a jump. And a person sweating profusely is talking about the quantity or the amount or the rate or force of sweat, right? I want to be careful with my wordage there. Rate is probably not the best word to use. But when we talk about sweating profusely, there's a lot of sweat, right? It's coming off. There's a lot of it, right? So what are we talking about here? We're talking about magnitude, right? Magnitude is the force or intensity that something is occurring. And so when we talk about whispering and jumping high and profusely, what we're talking about is magnitude. We don't have any rate or duration because there's no quantities here. And it's not topography because whispering isn't a topography. We still don't know what it looks like. Jumping high, well, maybe we know what jumping is, but that's not a really much of a topography at all because jumping can mean different things to different people. So what we have here is magnitude. Okay, so topography, more specifically, form, shape, or look of a response. You're probably all familiar with this. Typically, when writing definitions of behaviors, we have functions and we have topography. Topography helps because when I say jump, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? What does that mean to me? It means different things. With topography, we can actually write in words and describe what a jump is and what a jump isn't. So topography is measurable because responses can vary in form. Many responses that serve the same function look nothing alike, which is where topography can help because we can describe all these different responses and how they look as maybe one response class, right? Topography is malleable, meaning we can shape it. We can shape topography and it's selected by consequences. So if we don't necessarily like the topography of a behavior, we can go through a shaping process and change the topography without changing the function. And now this is where we're starting to get into some real interesting behavior change things, right? I have a behavior that I like. It meets a function that I want, but I want the behavior to just look a little different. I think we can do it a little better. And that's where we're going to shape the topography or the look of the behavior. Topography is not enough to define behavior. This is a big mistake people make where they say, well, we've got this behavior that looks like this. Okay. So what? What's the point? Why does the behavior occur? What effect does it have on the environment? Topography can be very deceptive when discussing functions of behavior, which is why topography is not enough. We need a topography and then we need a precise function. When the behavior looks like this, it happens for this reason. And even then, it's deceptive because we can have behaviors or responses with the same topography and they serve very different functions. You've got to be very careful when writing your definitions, and you want to be as precise as possible. And topography and magnitude give us more leeway and give us more ways to be precise. So for example, aggression looks like a balled up fist, or an open hand making contact with another person. Great. We know exactly what aggression looks like. Here we have a non-example, even better. It is not making contact with a stimuli that is not a person. In other words, if I gave you this today and I said, go track aggression, you could do that because now you know what's a balled up fist or an open hand making contact with another person. And I know it's not them hitting a wall or hitting a counter or something like that. How about shaking hands? Looks like extending an open hand, grasping another person's hands, and moving up and down 2 or 3 times, then letting go. And you might say, well, why are we being so precise here and specific about how these behaviors look? Because it matters. Especially think about if you're using a punishment procedure and you're supposed to be punishing a learner for engaging in elopement. We want to be very precise about how we define elopement because we don't want to punish things that aren't elopement. Reinforcement's the same way. We want to be precise about what we're reinforcing. Topography and magnitude allow you precision when defining behavior. And then magnitude is the force or intensity of a response. It can be difficult to explain magnitude. So try to use, these, maybe we call them adjectives, right? Or these adverbs, okay? If we're using adjectives and adverbs, right? We're describing how things are occurring, okay? So it wasn't he hit his brother hard. It's not he's talking loudly or he's talking quietly. It's not you're writing softly or you're writing weakly or you're doing something strongly. It was high, it was low. Now, again, we're giving more color and precision to our language. And our definitions are just getting better and better and better. So magnitude is often used when shaping within topographies, meaning if I've got a topography I like, I just want them to do it. I want them to be louder, right? Or they're doing it too weakly, then I can shape within topographies to make it stronger. Magnitude can be difficult to measure. Attempt to stay as objective as possible, right? Because if I say, well, I need it more strong, I need them to do it more strongly, that can be very subjective, right? So magnitude, again, if we had to rank them, function is by far the most important. And then we'd have topography. And then magnitude can add some life and some detail, right? But you've got to be very, very careful about using magnitude because, again, it can be very subjective. And so we want to be as objective as possible and then staying within the realm of being realistic about our definitions. So, for example, the client will speak loudly enough for peers to hear. Here we've got a response, and we want them more loud. The client will write using appropriate force, there's our magnitude, so the pencil does not break during writing. All right, topography and magnitude. We talked a lot about these things, but let's not overcomplicate what topography and magnitude are, because at the end of the day, they're definitional measurements essentially, right? We're using them to help define behavior, and it's really the beginning and end of that, right? Because still, without a function, it doesn't matter. Your magnitude and your topography are going to help your technicians really understand, okay, what am I changing? What am I measuring? So be precise with your magnitudes and your topographies. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com. Let us know when you pass. Work hard. Study hard. See you soon.